I'm going to turn and talk about the Democrat debates from last night. Okay, to be perfectly honest, I didn't watch them. I watched highlights. I want to make just a few comments. So, and keep in mind, these people you're watching on the stage, assuming Hillary doesn't get in, which I think she might, I'm going to go with, I think it's better than 50-50 shot. Hillary Clinton will get in the race in 2020 because she looks at the parade of characters on the stage last night for the Democrat debate, and she thinks she's better than all of them. She thinks she would have a more serious likely chance of winning than any of them. But here we are. We have those candidates on stage. The first point I wanted to make, like 3 or 4 points about the debates last night. One was how determined the questioners were to go with questions that were enticing the candidates, these Democratic presidential candidates, to go anti-Trump, pro-impeachment. Just a very, these were not serious questions. These are, can you please find a way to get President Trump? So I meant to check with the wonderful Matt. Were you able to get that clip of questions that was off of the, Yeah. Okay. So this is off an article from American Thinker, but it's about the way, you'll see who it is in a moment, was asking questions. Here she is, the first clip.
You have said already that you've seen enough to convict the president and remove him from office. Will you try to convince your Republican colleagues in the Senate to vote the same way? How central should the president's conduct uncovered by the impeachment inquiry be to a Democratic nominee's campaign? How central would it be to yours? After the bombshell testimony of Ambassador Sondland today, has that view changed for you? How central should the president's conduct uncovered by this impeachment inquiry be to any Democratic nominee's campaign for president? How central would it be to yours?
Okay, this is Rachel Maddow. Clearly recognized her. She's the queen bee of MSNBC. And she could not contain her disdain for President Trump. And I thought several of the candidates looked kind of like, do we have to go there? Can't we talk about policy? Because the Democrat Party is realizing, at least the smart ones, impeachment is not playing in Peoria. People do not like it. They can see, and you even heard Rachel Maddow's question. Well, given the bombshell testimony by Sondland, which was, again, Sondland said no one ever told him that Trump tied aid to the Ukraine to getting Ukraine's agreement to investigate Burisma or Biden. In fact, several people said that we didn't even, when we were talking to Zelensky, we didn't even talk about Biden. We just talked about Burisma, which is the core thing, the core issue for the Ukrainians. Is in their country, it's a company run by one of their people that was engaged in this unbelievable corruption scandal. In any case, so you have Rachel Maddow spending all her time trying to stir the Democrats up. But the next thing was very, very interesting. There was I'm going to hit in the next segment just Elizabeth Warren, because she is, she's circling at the top. She's among the top people. It is Elizabeth Warren. It is Buttigieg is amazingly doing well, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. So I guess I have a bunch of clips I want to play. I guess I'll just do the Joe Biden one next, because I play so few of his gaffes. I play so few of them. But this was kind of comical. In the Democrat debate last night, here is Joe Biden.
So I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus, the only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate, a whole range of people.
No,
my point is,
that's not true. The other one's here.
I said the first African-American elected.
Okay, kind of comical. He's on stage giving his little, soliloquy about how Black America is really, really supporting him. They love me. And he had the support. And he did say the only Black woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate, as he's standing on the same stage with Kamala Harris, who's not backing him. But anyway, he said I meant only. But okay, that's a little bit of amusement. But Biden continues to flounder and sound unsure of himself and stumble, and the Democrats aren't too excited about his presence in the race, I don't think. But on a more serious note, there is an ad that Elizabeth Warren is playing. This was a theme I want to get to in a more serious discussion about the Democrat debate. Elizabeth Warren has a new ad out, very stridently pushing for punishing the wealthy via taxes. And I want to play, if we can, this is her campaign ad. I believe it's already out, at least it's accessible online. So here it is.
It is time for a wealth tax in America. I've heard that there are some billionaires who don't support this plan.
The vilification of billionaires makes no sense to me. It's bull.
She would ruin what we have.
She probably thinks more of cataclysmic change to the economic system as opposed to tinkering.
Well, I'm most scared by Elizabeth Warren.
So here's the deal. You built a great fortune. Good for you. I guarantee. You built it, at least in part, using workers all of us help pay to educate. Getting your goods to market on roads and bridges, all of us help pay to build. We're Americans. We want to make these investments. All we're saying is when you make it big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it.
I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I approve this message.
I got to tell you, folks, this is a conscious decision by this woman, Elizabeth Warren, to basically say, I'm going to get right out there and I'm going to be the leader in attacking the wealthy. I'm going to be the leader in class warfare. I'm going to be the leader stirring up Americans, ignorant Americans, people who don't understand how the economic system works, who don't understand the virtues of free markets. I'm going to stir them up into anger. She's kind of the angry socialist vote she's trying to get in her corner. She is trying to instill hatred and suspicion and envy of the wealthy. And this is a very interesting thing. I want to talk about that in a minute, and then I want to turn to what Cory Booker had to say. Because briefly, he sounded sane, like maybe a Republican, but then he quick got over it. But on Elizabeth Warren, she is wading into the world of saying, and we're going to talk about her health care proposal next, but she's wading into the world of saying that essentially the purpose of the federal government in America, in this free market economy, in America founded on the freedom of the individual, the example to the world of the prosperity and success possible flowing from freedom, flowing from free markets. She is selling a central point of socialism, that the purpose of the government is to redistribute wealth. The purpose of the government is, when you saw the little laundry list you had there at the end, if we tax the wealthy, we can, if we tax billionaires more, and we can, pay for free health care for everybody, free college for everybody, universal preschool. She has a whole list. We can get rid of all college debt. She's got this insane, and I actually mean the word insane, utopian notion that somehow everything that costs money is available to be given away by her and other radical government control freaks on the American left if they will just let her pass laws that essentially okay the seizing of private wealth of people that she is vilifying as too successful, as having too much money. And this, she is entirely determined to sell this as kindness, as caring. Don't you see how I care about the American people? This is why I am doing this, because I care about the American people. And I think if the American people can just see all that we could be paying for, if we just get the, and then she uses these expressions, she had it over and over in the debate. Come on, throw in an extra 2 cents. You billionaires, throw in an extra 2 cents. Throw in an extra, 5 cents. She talks about it like it's like, as somebody who's a billionaire is being asked to give a nickel or a dime. And then she castigates, obviously her ad, picks out some billionaires who are kind of concerned about her mission. So number one, she is completely committed to she is saying, I'm a socialist. She's trying to say I'm not, but when you say the purpose of taxation is the redistribution of wealth, that's the purpose of government's taxing power, you're a socialist, you don't get to say you're not. You just don't get to. Second point, there are several Democrat researchers out there who've been looking back at previous elections and at midterm elections and at congressional elections, elections of people to Congress all over this country. And they have come up with an analysis of the impact on the elections when candidates like Elizabeth Warren go so far left, Bernie's a socialist. We all know it. He's proud of it. And, he's got the Socialists of America behind him. Elizabeth Warren is really no better. She's just a touch savvier in not calling herself a socialist. But these analysts have been researching and reporting and trying to help the Democrat Party understand that, number one, when you go so far left to stir up the angry socialist base that got so excited about the victory of President Obama and are so excited about Bernie Sanders, when you play into that radical leftist base, which is not on the American playing field, not part of the American dream, not part of the American plan, you actually alienate many Democrat voters they need to win the general election. So these gurus who are themselves Democrats are doing research, and I linked to something on our website, americacanwetalk.org. You can go read the article, americacanwetalk.org. On homepage, under shows, drop down, list of links. Really thoughtful writing about what happens when Democrats go so far left. They may appeal to the radical base, but they lose the mainstream Democrats, and even more so, they embolden, in fact, they bring about the victory of Republicans. So a lot of people worried about her because she's making headway. You know, she's definitely in the top 3 or 4 in all the polls there are, but there's a particular thing that she raised, and actually, let me do one last thing. On the debate, last segment, one last thing, that we had a little clip of Cory Booker, who, as I said, briefly gave voice to a reasonable idea, but then he went off the rails. So if we have Cory, but last thing from the debate last night, Cory Booker, if we have him, the very wonderful Matt, the producer.
We as Democrats need to fight for a just taxation system. But as I travel around the country, we Democrats also have to talk about how to grow wealth as well. When I stood in church recently and asked folks in a black church how many people here want to be entrepreneurs, half the church raised their hands. If we as a country if we have a party, don't start talking not just about how to tax wealth, but to give more people opportunities to create wealth, to grow businesses, to have their American dream. Because, yeah, we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. But the people in communities I frequent, their aspiration for their lives is not just to have those fair wages. They want to have an economy that provides not just equalities in wealth, but they want to have equalities of opportunity. And that's what our party has to be about as well.
Okay, as I say, Cory Booker briefly sounding sane there. He is recognizing that the Democrats are standing on that stage, and all they're doing is arguing with each other about who's going to raise the taxes higher on the wealthy, who's going to tax the hardworking people, who's going to raise, I'm the one, I'll take everyone's money away. Vote for me, I'll take all the rich people's money away. They won't have $1 left to spend. I mean, this is Cory Booker's realizing this is not playing in mainstream America. It's not even playing, as he's saying, in visiting a black church. This idea of the purpose of government is just to take away money from the rich and give it to other people doesn't even play in a black church. Instead, he said these people want to hear about and be re-energized about the idea of entrepreneurism, of building their own wealth, of becoming what it is, part of the American dream. So Cory Booker said that, so, sane to that point. But then he goes on to, and his little list, to be clear what he's running on, because he's trying to say Elizabeth Warren's too extreme, but he's running on penalizing wealth in different ways. He wants to increase the tax on capital gains. Well, if anybody knows, that has been a true killer of innovation, and reinvestment and growth of business, which creates jobs, which puts food on the table for families in America. The increase in the capital gains tax is a killer in the economy, and a killer especially for the most successful people among us, who are not going to continue investing if that's what they're going to do to them. Second is, he wants an increase in the death taxes, an extremely unpopular position. The death tax is, the inheritance tax, what you get to pass on to your children when you pass on. And this idea, what he's arguing about is saying, let's just take more of their money away. Very unpopular idea. Every time it's polled, people do not like this. He's also talking about the federal $15 minimum wage. Again, as we talked about many times on this show, the minimum wage increase is a job killer, especially for the people who need jobs the most, the unskilled, the people just beginning their participation in the labor force, the people who need those entry-level jobs, who truly aren't contributing much value to the company, but they're learning job skills like show up in time, punch in, do what your boss says, work hard, don't leave to the end of your shift, these basic things. The minimum wage increase always ends up hurting the poor the most. And it ends up hurting the people in especially cities and areas who implement these programs, because what happens when they increase minimum wage is that the next tier of employees above the minimum wage earner says, well, wait a minute, if those guys are now getting 15, well, that's more than I get, or that's just what I get, then I get 20. So all the wages inside a company have to keep going up to keep parity, to keep fairness with, because the new entry-level workers are now making a higher wage than they used to. So the company, not being made of money, ends up having to increase the cost of the good or service they produce. So the increase in cost happens, and then all the people who have all that new money in their hands from the increase in wages find that everything they want to buy costs more. This is reality. This is like gravity. It's just truth. You can't change it. And I actually think that a guy like Cory Booker probably knows this. But this is another example of pandering to the people who are struggling, people who just want to hear, somehow you're going to help me. So Cory Booker is really no better in terms of harming the wealthy than is Elizabeth Warren, even though, because he was kind of getting on her case about her wealth tax thing, but he's just getting increased taxes in different ways than Elizabeth Warren would have.